Hi everyone, my name is Jill Stott and I'm a Senior Agile Trainer for Next Step Solutions. And I am here to introduce you to Agile software development. We're going to start with a scenario. Let's suppose that you have an amazing idea for a new software application. So you decide to use some traditional project management techniques and processes in order to do that. So you hire a bunch of really smart people and you start planning. You plan very, very meticulously with a lot of detail, and it takes months and months and months to come up with exactly how we're going to do this. Along with the planning, you create a very large book of requirements. We want to make sure we have every detail planned out in advance. And then we take this large stack of paper with all these details and we give it to our development team to start creating this awesome idea that you had. And as they start working on it, they realize, oh, wait a minute, we made some mistakes up here when we were defining our requirements or design, and it's not going to work the way we thought. And you're pretty frustrated at this point because you thought you had a perfect plan. You don't have a mechanism to go back and make those changes. So you have to install this really complicated process, because you don't want this happening very often, where people have to get back together and then update the requirements and then re-sign everything to make sure that we're on the same page. So you're getting a little bit frustrated. It's already taking longer than you had anticipated. Finally, the developers get something that they can give to the QA department, and they start testing it, thinking, oh, we'll probably find a few defects, not a big deal, then we can quickly get it out to the market. But it turns out, whoa, huge problems in test. Nothing works right. It works very different in that environment versus the development environment. There's a huge struggle, and it ends up taking an enormously longer amount of time in order to test and fix all the problems that they had in the application. So now you're about 9 months in, and you spent millions of dollars. So you're thinking, okay, I've spent all this capital. Sooner or later, we're going to get it out to market and recoup all that money that we've spent, and then even get a huge profit. So you finally, after a year and a half goes by, it finally is in decent enough shape to go out to market. So you do a big deploy, and unfortunately, it is fraught with problems that you didn't anticipate. If you have more than 100 users, the whole system crashes. When you talk to a few users that were able to use it, they said, this doesn't really solve the problem we thought it would. We don't like the interface. It's really hard to use. I don't think we're going to buy your product. So you've just spent millions of dollars and a year and a half of your life building the wrong thing and building the thing wrong. So a frightening scenario, yes. This has happened to many, many software development teams and organizations. And it was a common problem in the 80s and 90s when we tried to apply these traditional project management where we had very long stage gates and phases. And then we would get to each phase and realize, we made a mistake. We have to go loop back and make some changes. And there wasn't any wiggle room to do that because it was so tightly regulated. In 2001, some individuals who were getting frustrated with this type of process for software development realized this is just too heavyweight. We need to get faster feedback. So they all got together in Snowbird, Utah, and they had a conversation saying, what are some commonalities? What are some things that we've tried that we think would be helpful for the entire software development community? So after that weekend they spent together, they came up with 4 values and 12 principles. I'm going to go through each one of the 4 values. So the first value is we value individuals and interactions over processes and tools. So these are an interesting way to state these values. They're saying, hey, we still value processes and tools. We need tools. We need some type of a process so it's not chaotic. It's not just insane. Everyone does what they want. But we value those interactions between people talking to each other, collaborating, having really useful meetings to decide what to do and to pivot and change as you go through an iteration. So this puts the emphasis on people over process. We really value those people, and we don't want to get so addicted to our process that we ignore the fact that human beings are important. They're the most important and most expensive part of an entire software development process. We want to make sure that we value their input, that we're hearing not just from the leaders, but every single person is empowered to speak up and say, I don't think this is going to work, or I made a mistake, or I have this really cool idea. Let's hear them out. The more voices we get, the more diverse people that we have on the team, the more unique, awesome, innovative solutions that we're going to come up with. All right, our next value here is, hey, we decided we value working software over comprehensive documentation. So back in the scenario where you created all those requirement documentation and then you said, whoa, look, we're 30% complete. You really aren't anywhere near that far completion because nobody wants to buy your documentation. So while we still need to write some things down, we want to do just the bare minimum. Stuff that we're going to refer to again and again, write it down. But let's not create these huge books assuming we can predict the future in the planning phase and it won't change. What we really value the most is pieces of software that work, that I can play with it, I can use it, I can get feedback on. That's really the indication of how you are progressing along as far as getting something ready to go to market. Next, we have our customer collaboration. We value that the most over contract negotiation. We still have to have contracts with our customers. It's really, really important, but we want to pull the customer in closer rather than signing the contract at the beginning of a project and then finally getting it complete and then giving it to the customer. And then they realize, whoa, this isn't what I had in mind at all. I don't like it. And we have to say, well, too bad you signed the contract. You'll have to give us another $500,000 for us to update it. Creates a very adversarial relationship between the customers and the developers. And we don't want that. We can't anticipate what the customer is or isn't going to like. So what we really want to do is have them help us along the way. We make little pieces and say, is this what you had in mind? Not really. So it's a quick little inexpensive change versus waiting till the very end. And then our last one here, our fourth one, we value responding to change, oops, my head's in the way, over following a plan. So in Agile software development, we still plan. In fact, we probably plan more, but we plan a small iteration, and then as we learn more stuff, we realize, oh, this isn't going to work. We've built it into our process that, hey, we're going to adapt. We don't have this huge investment in documentation, so it's pretty easy to pivot and change without a lot of money and not a lot of time. So we are continually replanning as we learn more from a technological perspective and as we learn more from what our clients expect. Is this solving your problem? I want to know at the very beginning and all along the way, rather than spending $1 million and realizing that I just built something that nobody wants. So change is good. We want to embrace it and we want to maximize the benefit from change. As the market is changing constantly, particularly in technology, we want to be able to harness that for our own good rather than be addicted to, hey, this was our plan, so we can't change, even if it's no longer valuable. All right, now let's see what it might look like if you decided, hey, instead of doing this that traditional way like we showed at the beginning with the panda bears, what if we did it in small increments? So you still have your awesome idea, and before you do anything, you've done a lot of research as far as talking to people, understanding your customers, understanding what their real problems are, interviewing them, getting tons of feedback. So then you're like, okay, now we're ready to go. We've set up a nice relationship with those customers. So they're going to work with us throughout the entire journey. And what we want to do, rather than doing all of it at once and taking 1.5 years before we get anything out the door, we want to break it out into small iterations. We want to be iterative and incremental. So Iterative means, hey, we still have to do those things we talked about initially. We still need a plan, right? We need to do it, then we need to verify that it's correct. But we want to add this other component here, the ability to adjust and adapt as we learn through these small cycles. So this iterative approach could take maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, 4 at the very most. Now we have a little slice of that new awesome application you want. And I get a lot of information quickly without spending a ton of time on the wrong thing. I know, oh, our assumptions were wrong. We're going to have to adapt and modify the requirements potentially, modify our implementation details, modify our architecture. Also, after this iteration, I have a little piece of my application that then I can go and show people and say, hey, what do you think about this? Have them play around with it, do a demonstration, get that feedback quickly so you can adapt and change with very minimal cost. So I have one iteration, and then it just depends. I've got happy people so far. I'm not frustrated. I'm not a grumpy panda bear. And then I go through a second iteration. So I have one increment of value here already just after a couple of weeks. Then I go through that cycle again, and then I add on to that increment. So now I have building out this awesome new application. Maybe instead of doing the whole thing, I'm going to get like a nice minimal viable product out the door first so I can get that feedback, get some money coming in, and then start adding on to it until I have my full-blown thing, maybe over a course of several years or longer, depending on all the cool things that we come up with. So then I decide, okay, I think within 3 iterations, we'll have something of value that we can ship to the marketplace. So we make this third one. We've got happy people. They're giving us feedback. We're making changes based on what they tell us. And then I come to my final iteration here. And the idea is now I have something that my customers will love, and they'll keep working, we'll keep working together to keep maximizing value in the shortest sustainable lead time. So along with the manifesto, there's also a lot of different frameworks that people have come up with that are really lightweight processes, and in some cases define certain roles that you might want to adopt in order to actualize those values and principles that we talked about from the Agile Manifesto. The most commonly used one is Scrum, and it's, if you go to scrumorg.com, you can download, it's about 10 pages that teach you about Scrum and how to set it up and how to run it. And it's super easy to learn. It takes some while to get used to it because it's a new way of thinking for a lot of people. Kanban is also another really great Agile tool that you can use to manage work. And the cool thing is, while this Agile movement started really with software development, it applies to almost any type of work. You can manage your work using Kanban if you're a marketing agency, if you're a nuclear scientist. If you do work, it's a great way to help you manage it and decrease how long it takes you to get things completed. So just a couple, this is from a survey from people who are using Agile, and just some of the key benefits that they described. Hey, this gives us the ability to manage those changing priorities better and more efficiently and more cost effectively. I've increased my speed to market, my productivity has gone up, and I'm not expecting anyone to work really long hours and just burning out. We want it to be sustainable. And then the risk reduction, since I'm having little slivers of success here and getting feedback, I'm not jeopardizing millions of dollars and years of time doing the wrong thing. And then cost reduction, since it's taking less time to get these things out the door, it's going to cost us less, because in software development, time equates to money. So if I can reduce the cost, you can increase your profit. So at the end of the day, Agile is a mindset. It's how we think, how we're coming together to collaborate, to eliminate things that aren't adding value, to decrease the amount of red tape and bureaucracy so we can spend our time and money actually developing stuff that people will love, will solve their problems, and bring them to life. It comes with a set of values, the stuff that we believe, the principles that underpin all of the stuff that we do and the practices that we tend to inhabit day after day. And then our behaviors, those practices that come from based in our values, our mindsets, and our principles that have kind of dictated, hey, here's a nice little framework we can use that helps us collaborate on a continuous basis. We talk to each other rather than just sending emails back and forth, and we can have that high bandwidth communication that we couldn't otherwise. So there you go. There is a 15-minute introduction to Agile, and it's been my pleasure. And there's tons of information on Agile. Please reach out and find out all you can. Like I said, it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. It's just getting huge. And if you don't understand Agile and how to use that, then you're going to be in a pickle when you get into a job. So I highly suggest you learn all you can. Thank you very much. This was Jill Stott. Take care. Goodbye.